Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Yeah. Welcome into another Indiana Sports Radio with Jim Coyle. I am the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for Jim as he gets rested up and gets charged up here as the month of July is rolling right along. And before you know it, we're going to be knee deep into Indiana football in the month of August as they get ready to take on Old Dominion on August the 30th in Memorial Stadium. Thank you for joining us here this morning. A little bit better today than maybe yesterday in terms of prep for me and myself, but wanted to thank those that were with us yesterday and welcome those that are with us today. Appreciate you all being here, and we're going to get this thing rocking today. We've got a great lineup for today. We're going to talk with Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal Gazette here in a little bit. We'll talk to him a little bit about, Indiana basketball, Indiana football, where he feels they are at in this point in time. Get his take on Puerto Rico and kind of what are some of the things he may be looking for from the first look at Coach DeVry's Hoosier basketball team as they get to take on I think they're taking on the Puerto Rican national team in a game or two, and then the Serbian pro team in a couple games as well. So we'll get a good look at the Indiana Hoosiers basketball in the month of August as well. And we talked about yesterday, we're just slammed in the month of July with all things from different parts of the world of sports. Wimbledon going on. You've got the British Open here in a couple weeks. Big Ten Media Days right around the corner and everything. We are sports fanatics about definitely enjoying the month of July. I want to give a shout out to my own home radio station up here in the Fort Wayne area, 1380 The Fan. They carry the Indiana Sports Radio with Jim Coyle as well. So those in Fort Wayne on 1380 The Fan, welcome. As well as down in Evansville at the Ref, ESPN's 97.7 down there. But a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting, getting some topics and discussion thing. It came out, I think, yesterday with the announcement of IU's Cream and Crimson Studios there on the campus of Indiana. Great production aspects of bringing all types of entertainment to Indiana athletics, as well as scoreboard operation and in-game things such as that. But the one thing that kind of stuck out to me with this new collaborative down there with the Big Ten, as well as with Big Ten Plus, is games that are airing on the Big Ten Plus platform. Those will actually be produced in-house there at Indiana with Cream and Crimson Studios. So what a great opportunity for those students that are looking for broadcasting opportunities as well as production opportunities, all things there with the new Cream and Crimson Studios. right on the campus of Indiana University, and working hand in hand with the Big Ten network, a Big Ten Plus network, and being able to bring games provided by Big Ten Plus, but will be produced there at Indiana. So that in itself, I thought was a neat thing as well. That was added to the campus and everything hand in hand with that. So I'm interested to see how that is. I know they've got a beautiful setup there as it pertains to TV production and all the things, radio production. You saw how they did and everything with the Bison layout that Jeremy Gray brought to life, and that was just a phenomenal tidbit that they added to there on the athletic website. I thought that was a unique thing, but having the opportunity to do all these productions there on campus is a big thing. And it's interesting how the Big Ten as well is network is providing opportunities for these different campuses to do these type of things and be a part of the overall broadcast and production of those broadcasts. So Cream and Crimson Studios, a big addition to the in-house production of Big Ten Plus material for this next year, which I thought was a unique and beautiful thing to see opportunity-wise. A couple things, too, as well, that kind of hit yesterday as well. Coach Cignetti has been added to the 2025 Dodd Trophy preseason watch list. Wasn't eligible last year, first year. This is more of second year and beyond coaches. A great honor to be in the nominations for that. We all can agree that is well-deserved when it comes to his aspects of what he has done at Indiana here over the last year, as well as being the character that he can be at times. But it's good to see him getting recognition in that arena around some great coaches from all over the country. So it'll be interesting to see how that, falls together for Indiana and Coach Cignetti. And I'm sure that is not anything of top of mind to him at this point in time. He is probably recharging these batteries, getting himself mentally and prepared for this next year coming up, and enjoying a little time off and getting ready to get back at it here at the end of the month, because they usually take about a 3-week period there at the end of June and get a chance to get away with family and friends, vacation, whatever that might be, get themselves recharged and regrouped after coming off a blitzing two and a half months of recruiting from the 1st of May all the way up through the end of June. And the staff and Coach Cignetti will get back at it here probably in about a couple weeks as they prepare for the Big Ten Media Days. And then, of course, the arrival of fall camp here at the end of July. And it's hard to believe that that's right around the corner with everything. Also, Indiana added Ristic, the kid out of the Serbian national team, to their 2025-26 roster. He has been playing in the FIBA under 20 team, national team. I know that we talked with Mike DeCourcy yesterday about being able to watch a lot of basketball, that FIBA under 19, and under 19, 20, those type of teams. But Ristic announced by Indiana basketball the other day as being added to the 25-26 roster and the Serbian national team. And it's really another great addition to already a very talented, on paper at least, but a very talented basketball team that he has assembled. And we're going to get to see them coming up here as well shortly as they head to Puerto Rico, as I said earlier, where they got a chance to play the Puerto Rican national all-star team in a couple games, and then a Serbian pro team in a couple games. So that in itself, it'll be an exciting time to really get a feel for Indiana basketball and where they're at. But I do think they've got a talented roster when you look at it on paper. So these are some of the things that are on top here in the next few days or weeks to come, is with all things from basketball to football, you name it. It is upon us. Also, another thing that I saw that I was interested in, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday to a degree, but some of the top evaluations, NIL valuations heading into this year, a little different. You know, you got the rev share part of the equation that the players are being paid out of that $20 million house settlement that schools are now in the process of making those payments after July 1st. And then whatever NIL opportunities are out there for kids and some of the evaluation. We've talked about this young man yesterday as it pertained to a quote unquote Heisman Trophy potential candidate, Arch Manning from Texas. He's played very, I wouldn't say limited, but he's had this past year an opportunity to play. But his evaluation right now and the deals that he has are with EA Sports, Red Bull, and Uber are prominently the three top ones. 6.8 million in NIL evaluations. 6.8 million representing the brands of EA Sports, Red Bull, and Uber. So that's his NIL eval. Carson Beck was the second one. Again, a quarterback, Miami of Florida. He transferred from Georgia to Miami. May have been some off the field reasons for that with a girl that played basketball there at Miami that may have led to that transfer. But he has an NIL package valuation of $4.3 million. So you're talking some big time money for quarterbacks that have some brand and name recognition. Jeremiah Smith, the talented wide receiver at Ohio State. He is a beast when it comes to the wide receiver position. His val is $4.2 million. He has deals with American Eagle, Lululemon, Red Bull, Nintendo, and is a video game cover athlete. He's raking in $4.2 million. So you can just see that some of these guys and throughout the country, especially those that have top brand name awareness and being able to have thousands and thousands of social media followers, TikTok, Instagram, I do think would be the two prominent ones. X to a degree, but mostly in those other arenas, are getting paid quite well for their name, image, and likeness. But I found that what will be interesting is the clearinghouse and how all that is going to be interpreted in terms of deals that will be presented to the clearinghouse that are anything over $600. Now you've got some guys that are making millions on their name, image, and likeness deals. Basketball, not any different. Toppin, Texas Tech, $2.8 million. I think they said that he received almost $4 million, I believe, so far in some the Texas Tech collective to stay with the program as he was looking out at other opportunities. Lindenborg out of Michigan, 2.3. And they were able to keep him from the draft. And that's one thing with basketball now, is being able to keep some of your roster intact without guys going into the NBA draft, you know, getting that extra year or two of college experience to better prepare them for the NBA because they're able to pay them with that. And then in basketball, we're already seeing it with some of the beyond the U.S. borders, bringing guys in from overseas and adding them into the roster as well. So you can see with all this changing the landscape of college athletics, college football, college basketball for the most part, it's an interesting dynamic to really follow and try to understand. As you can see in football already, the quarterback position is kind of the dominant one. As we all said, the quarterback gets way too much recognition when things are going well and too much blame when things are going bad. But it just shows their marketability and the national exposure they gained from all the television deals and things like that. So a couple things there on top to talk about this morning. We're going to get out and take our first break here. When we come back, Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal Gazette, we're going to be able to talk a little bit about Indiana football and basketball and maybe sneak in that dirty word of Purdue and talk about some of their football aspects as Coach Barry Odom gets ready to bring the Boilers into their first year under his leadership. But all things will be the talking about with Dylan right after we get back here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with the coach, Shannon Griffith, setting in for Jim Coyle today and going to bring in Dylan Sinn into our overall production. Dylan, didn't expect to see me today, did you?
I got the email last night, so I was prepared.
Did you?
I was prepared to see you, but otherwise it would have been a jump scare. Let me tell you, I would have been worried.
Well, I got to make sure that I got guys in here that can carry the old man along today. Trying to live up to Jim's stature on the Sports Beat Radio, but I was just saying about we're at that time of year where there's just a lot of different things happening in the sports world, from Major League Baseball with the All-Star game upon us. You've got Wimbledon going on. You got the British Open in a couple weeks, not to slight the WNBA, but that's all going on with their All-Star game and that format and how that's all, a unique thing. But for sports lovers, July is just an awesome month when you think about what is at your fingertips.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little bit of a different it's a little bit different than usual, right? Like it's not like January or February where there's like the grind of a long season. You have basketball going on, you have football going on, but it's a long season, right? These are kind of standalone events. You, like you said, Wimbledon and the British Open, the Tour de France is happening. It's standalone things that don't happen over months and months. You get them in a condensed space, and you kind of get to see a lot of different sports going on. So yeah, pretty exciting. And then of course, we're only about 3 weeks away now from college football training camp happening. So. An NFL training camp. So yeah, everything is coming closer and closer every day, and it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, NFL training camp, of course, is a lot closer than college football's start to training camp, and Indianapolis Colts will be getting ready to entertain as well as maybe have a pretty good competition at the quarterback position as they set up for this next season. And Anthony Richardson's really second year potentially at the helm. But right now, let's talk a little bit about Indiana football and kind of, the overall sentiment with this 2026 class. And, I just said before you came on that, Coach Cignetti was added to the 2025 Dodd preseason watch list. Not surprising that his name was in that category with the other nation top coaches. You got to figure he's one of the top coaches, but what he's done more specifically here at Indiana within the last 2 years at that, when you look at the 2026 recruiting class and picking up Ronell Jackson here of late, the 4-star defensive edge player, what is kind of your overall sentiment of Indiana football right now, heading into this second year, going from last year and through great season and now a recruiting season that has them already top 25 class and probably within the top 10 of the Big Ten?
Yeah, I can't remember it. It's hard to remember a time where there was more optimism around the present and the future of IU football, right? The time you go back to obviously is 2020, right after they had that great season. Tom Allen seemed to have it rolling, but even then, the recruiting wasn't quite on the level that we've seen it now. I think that is the thing that we're seeing is that they brought it. We've talked before, and I'm sure most of our listeners at this point know all of the work that IU did in the transfer portal this offseason. They got some really talented players to replace the ones who are leaving. They kept basically everyone that they really wanted to keep. All of the really good players on their roster are sticking around. And so that was huge. But then on top of that, you start leveling up the high school recruiting, right? And Tom Allen had some good recruiting classes. Let's not forget how good of a job Tom Allen did in recruiting. But the class that Curt Cignetti is putting together this year is really, really good. And they're already making inroads in the 2027 class as well that I think are going to pay dividends. So it's really hard to remember a time that there was this much optimism around Indiana football, both what's going to happen in 2025. I think people are excited about it, and frankly, they should be. And then going forward, how you're going to be able to kind of keep that rolling over multiple years, at least on paper, with the talent you're bringing in. So it's a really good job Curt Cignetti has done taking over a team that everyone knows they went 3-9, and then going 11-2 with mostly his guys, a lot of his guys from JMU, and then keeping it rolling, right? It would have been so easy for that to be a flash in the pan, for the coaches to scatter to the winds because they all got jobs off of that, and just keep it rolling from there. But they have not rested on their laurels in any way, shape, or form. I think that's what's most impressive here.
I'm talking with Dylan Sinn from the Journal Gazette. Zach Browning had a great article. I think it was yesterday evening. Kind of went over and read it, and he was talking about, what have we learned? And we were, kind of talking about the same way here. There's no question that the success that Indiana has had to date has given them brand awareness, not just in the state of Indiana, but as well as in a national scope when it comes to the recruiting game. And this class of recruits in the 2026 class is heavily a defensive emphasis, getting the recruits that they have got thus far. And this was one thing that I saw. Four of IU's top 5 commits are D-line or edge rushers, which really tells you a lot where they think that they're going to have to get that foundational aspect that certain positions build up. Talk about, just overall your perspective there of, that aspect and emphasis being on defense thus far. Like we talked about Ronald Jackson earlier, top 300 player. Gabe Hill was one of an earlier commitment as well from the defensive line. But Coach Kuntz and Coach Haynes, the defensive coordinator, really done a great job with this defensive flavor of the class. But kind of talk about some of the, gets that they've got with not just ratings. They've got some 4-stars in this group, but some of the talent that is pretty much at the top of the chain when it comes to Indiana and recruiting, something that probably haven't seen in a long, long while.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about how they've really focused. Defensive line has been kind of the foundation of this whole thing, right? And I think obviously that's what it was last year for them, right? Like Mikhail Kamara was up there with CJ West, and they were just kind of wrecking shop. James Carpenter as well, and they're kind of wrecking shop on the defensive line. And that was a huge, huge part of how they were able to have success last season. And so they've gone out and really done a terrific job of kind of continuing that. You talked about Coach Kuntz and to a lesser extent Coach Haynes on the recruiting trail here, because they will because Coach Kuntz is handling that defensive line very, very well. And he's another one of those guys where the fact they were able to keep him this offseason, when I'm sure he had offers other places because he did such a good job last year, it's really, really impressive. And then you see what he's able to do in really the first full recruiting class that IU has had. It's just leveling up talent, right? That is what Chris Nettie and his staff came in. They realized IU was not recruiting to the level they needed to in order to achieve what they wanted to. I think that's really the crux of it. And they came in and said, we are going to change that. And so far they have. You talked about Ronald Johnson, who's top 300 player in the country. You don't get many of those at IU, but that's becoming more and more common. And so you're trying to build that depth along the offensive line, or along the defensive line, I should say, which is where you're really going to compete with the Ohio States, the Penn States, the Michigans, and a year by year basis. Is you're going to have to be really good in the trenches, and that's obviously a priority for them.
Yeah, and don't forget Cameron McCaney, the young man out of IMG, who is by the way of Greenwood, Indiana. Indiana's in-state recruiting has been as good as any time that it has been, with 6 in-state commitments, and they've got some of the top kids in the state of Indiana. Casimir Hicks, the number 2 DB, Gibbs, from up in the region. So that is bodes very, very well for Coach Signetti and staff with the, brand awareness and things of that magnitude, but they're able to get these talented kids and get them to come to Indiana, which is no easy feat now. 11-2 1 year. Okay, great. We got to do more than just 1 year, to continue this trend of being able to get some of these big time commitments as we go forward with everything. Jump over to Big Ten Media Days. Are you heading out to Vegas?
I'm not heading out to Vegas. I think that was a little bit it's just not something that's in the Journal Gazette budget. It's one of those things where we're better suited keeping me close to home, kind of covering it from what's available on TV and on online, and doing some things closer to home here.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm sure there'll be plenty of news that happens. I'll be able to find most of it without taking a plane all the way out there for basically a glorified press conference.
Well, I got early clearance from the wife, and I thought, yeah, this could happen, and things went along, and then some other things hit the plate that unfortunately had me bowing out. So no Vegas for me in my future this year. But that's next, here in a couple weeks and kicking off really the season per se. One thing that jump into IU basketball, we'll get off the Big Ten media days for now, but heading to Puerto Rico, Indiana basketball's heading to Puerto Rico here in August. And, what are some things that you're specifically looking for with that? And Coach DeFries getting a chance to see his team for the very first time out on the court playing against competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's the list is so long because there's no continuity. Like, everyone is new, so you're kind of looking to see. I guess number one is Tucker DeVries going to play? Right? Like, how healthy is he? Is he ready to go? And if he is ready to go, how is his feel on the court? Is it going to take him some time to get back up to speed? Number two, what are they doing at point guard? Right? They have several options there. I continue to think that Tatum Connerway is going to be not only the point guard, but one of the best point guards in the Big Ten. I think, especially from a defensive standpoint, he gives them a real difference maker out there. But then how do you fit in Connor Enright, who's a very, very good player in his own right? And so they have options at that position. And then basically just overall feel, right? Do these guys have any feel for each other at all? Like, I mean, they get those 10 extra practices because they're going on the trip. The NCAA gives them 10 extra practices during the summer. How much feel for each other were they able to develop during those practices, right? And then obviously in the regular workouts that you're allowed to have, the 4 hours a week. Is it one of those things where these guys are it's just basketball, right? They're going to be able to figure it out because it's basketball and they can play together? Or is this one of those things that's going to take a while? Like, even once the season starts, we're going to have to see December, early January before these guys really start to gel, just because there's so much new. These guys are all outside of Tucker DeVries, basically. These guys are all learning a new system. How far along can they possibly be? I'm fascinated to see that, frankly. So there's so much new. And I guess the last thing would be, what are they going to do at center, right? Like, what is the plan there? Is Reed Bailey going to play the 5? I think that's probably the most likely option. Is he going to play a big 4 and have someone else play the 5? Sam Alexis maybe or is Alexis going to come off the bench? That was one of those things where it's kind of like, all right, the roster makes sense for the most part, but center is going to be a question of not do they have one, but how do they deploy the ones they do have? So there's a lot on your plate here when you're looking at this trip, because it's like these guys are also new. It's the first time we're seeing them on the court together. It's the first time we're seeing Darren DeVries coach. It's the first at IU. It's the first time we're seeing him coach these guys in particular. So I'm going to be fascinated. Like, it's one of those things where there's so much to learn. It's almost going to be information overload. Every single possession is going to be like, oh, that's new. Oh, that's new. Oh, that's different. You're running that set. I've never seen that before, and it's going to be something to watch. I'm fascinated.
Well, we're going to step aside, take a quick break, and Dylan's going to be back here with us right after this message here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coach Shannon Griffith filling in for Mr. Jim Coyle. He's taking a little break and recharging his own batteries as he's getting ready to get into the swing of things here in July. And he asked me a week ago about doing this, and I said, well, sure, I'd be glad to fill in and help you out any way you can. And yesterday he called me and reminded me about doing this. So when you want to do Wednesday, he goes, no, about 15 minutes. Yesterday was fun, getting into the swing of things. Talking with Dylan Sinn here from the Journal Gazette here in Fort Wayne. And no, we are not neighbors in Fort Wayne, as one of the comments was asking if we were neighbors, but I guess you could say county neighbors per se, maybe. I live over in the Columbia City area of Fort Wayne and Whitley County. But there
you go.
Talking, with Dylan here about Indiana basketball and the Puerto Rico, I guess you call it a tourney coming up, as they will play the Puerto Rican national team or all-star team, and then a Serbian national pro team for a couple games down there. I do not know how good that is of basketball. I would say fairly comparable to other college level programs within the states that they'll get to test up against them. And you talked about the coaching staff getting their first opportunity here. And the biggest thing, too, with the coaching staff is the first time that they'll be able to interact as a staff in a live game situation. How impressed were you with the staff that he's assembled there? I mean, I've been pretty impressed on who he's been able to attract to Indiana, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from the recruiting aspect and things of that nature. What is your take on the staff that he's assembled there with him at Indiana, and then getting a chance to really work at it, their continuity come August down there in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I was really impressed, frankly, with the staff he put together. I thought he did a really good job of getting guys who, first of all, know Indiana, but second of all, know recruiting, right? Like Darren DeVries, his reputation as a basketball coach was not built on recruiting, right? That was not something where it's like, oh, Darren DeVries is a guy who's going to go out and get everybody. And so when he came to IU, he very, very clearly realized, well, this is a program where you got to go recruit, and you got to recruit big fish. And so he went and got Drew Adams, and he went and got Kenny Johnson, and he went and got the rising star from Tennessee, whose name is escaping me at the moment. And so that is a staff that you put together that has a lot of connections in the recruiting world, has a lot of wins in the recruiting world under its belt already. And we've already see that pay dividends, right? I thought they did a good job of filling out the roster. I thought that one thing that impressed me when they were filling out the roster in the transfer portal was the competence of the way they were able to get these guys in, get them on campus, make them feel wanted, let them know what role they were going to have on the team, and then get them to commit. There were several guys in that group that had other visits scheduled and canceled them after they went to Bloomington, right? That to me speaks to a coaching staff that knows what it's doing on the recruiting trail and when it gets a recruit on campus. I think that is going to be really, really important going forward. And so I was impressed by that staff. Now, we'll see what happens when they get into a game situation, right? These are not guys who have been like associate head coaches really involved in game planning over many, many years. That's something that the staff is going to have to grow into, I think, at least a little bit. And so we're going to see. And DeVries obviously he had almost 20 years as an assistant coach at Creighton. He was the head coach at Drake, where you're intimately involved in game planning as a head coach. Obviously, it's not one of those ones where jobs where you're a CEO or anything like that and just overseeing the assistant coaches doing that. So I'm sure he will take point on a lot of that, and we'll have to see how the other assistant coaches fit into it. But I am really fascinated to see how that goes, because as you said, it is the first time just seeing this staff interact together on the bench, seeing them interact with their players. Who do they trust already, right? Who is going to be a leader among the players if there's a tough moment where you're down 5 and the other team has momentum, you have to call timeout. Who's going to be the guy who's vocal in the huddle, right? Who's going to be the guy who goes and gets you a bucket when the offense isn't working the way you want it to, right? These are all things we're going to be learning for the first time. And I'm really fascinated to see it because it is just, again, so new. Everything is turned over and you have an entirely fresh slate for this IU team in a way that basically we haven't had since 2008, right? Yeah. When the first year of the Tom Green era where no one knew who anyone was. Now, this team has a lot more talent than that one, right, which is good. I don't think this team is going to win 6 games. So we'll see a little bit more. The answers will be more forthcoming, I believe, in for this season, but we'll get the first of those answers when they're down in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, no question. This Puerto Rican trip is a huge opportunity to really get a peek at what they have, both on the court and along the bench. I think one thing that has stood out to me as a former coach and what Coach Cignetti has as a staff, what Coach DeVries brought in as a staff, a lot of guys that have relatability to kids. I mean, in their background, you know that there's always something that you can pick up in terms of a recruit talking about their interaction with a coach from Indiana. And I think that bodes so well because the X's and O's of stuff, Coach Sig and Coach DeVries are going to be able to communicate what they're wanting, what they're looking for, X and O's wise with the coaches, and they're going to coach them up. But when you have a coach that's out on the road representing the brand, they have to have that relatability in the circles that they're in terms of communicating with these young kids and basically providing them an opportunity with coming to a school like Indiana. So I think that's one thing that they've done very well with their staffs assembled there at both football and basketball when it comes to that aspect, because it's so critical now in the recruiting era when you think about it. The relatability factor, the brand awareness comes through winning and all those things. But now with NIL and the rev share, that just adds a whole different dynamic to this equation that you have to have top-notch people in those right positions to have an effective staff that understands the goal and understands what needs to be done, not only on the court, but with the kids as well as the recruits. So I just thought that was a unique thing there. But you're right. Puerto Rico is going to give us a lot of insight to what is good, what needs to be improved. But I do think they've got a phenomenal roster, in my opinion, of what they've got on paper. Now, paper doesn't win ball games. No. Same thing with, Cignetti last year. He had a lot of great players on paper. They were able to prove it. Let's, before we let you go here, Dylan, we'll jump over to some Purdue stuff because, here we got in the background, Barry Odom getting ready for his first season in Purdue. Got fired at Missouri, a few years back, kind of struggled in some respects at Mizzou. Not an easy place to win at. And of course, being in the SEC makes it even that difficult of a job, but he goes out to Vegas, does a great job out there, turns it around. And now he's got a chance again at a P4 institution. What did you think of the hire Purdue made with a guy like Barry Odom, defensive-minded coach, but that elder statesman per se?
I thought it was a good hire, frankly. He was on my list of guys who they should be looking at. I thought outside the Mizzou stuff, he went 500 at Mizzou, which is not a terrible job. He did fine. Eli Drinkwitz, who succeeded him, also went 500 in his first 3 seasons before really getting it going. So I don't think there's any shame in going 500 at Mizzou in an extremely tough conference. But then what he did at UNLV, which is a program that had been nothing for 25 years, basically. They had not had an 8-win season since 2000. And then he had 2 of them back-to-back, including a 10-win season. Really, really impressive. They were a couple of plays away from being a high-level like a college football playoff considerant. They almost beat Boise State last year, who did make the playoffs. So he did a really good job there in just 2 years of building it quickly. He learned how the transfer portal. He learned how to bring guys in and deploy them very quickly for a team that had not had success before. And so I thought it was a good hire, and he came in and said a lot of the right things that Purdue fans want to hear, including basically, this is not a rebuild. That's what he said. They're going to win, and they're going to win immediately. That was the statement when he was hired. Now, he very clearly thought that significant changes needed to be made for that to happen, right? They brought in over 50 transfers this offseason.
A boatload.
Yes, including more than 20 in the spring window, right? Like they went through spring practice and he said, boy, we still need a lot of guys. And so he brought in 20 more. And so now the question is, how are those guys going to, it's basically like IU for basketball, right? Mm-hmm. How are these guys going to fit together? Because he brought in some guys from UNLV. He brought in some pretty good players from UNLV. Several linemen, I think, is where he got the most talent from UNLV. And then the special teams as well, which was fantastic. That one of the best special teams units in the country. He brought in a lot of the guys who were responsible for that, including the special teams coach, James Shivest. So there are aspects of what he brought in from UNLV, but it's not Cignetti with James Madison. He didn't import most of the best players from the roster, right? Because it was an older team at UNLV. There were not as many guys who had eligibility remaining. So then he went and just scoured everywhere for everything and looking in every corner for talent. He went to FCS. He had some D2 guys in there he brought up. So they really, in the spring window, focused on the line. He really went hard in the offensive and defensive lines in the spring window, which they clearly thought was an area for concern after spring practice. So we'll see what they were able to do there. It really is one of those things with this, like kind of with IU basketball, where there's so much new. It's really hard to even say how this is going to work because so many of these guys haven't even put on a Purdue uniform before, and so much of the staff has never been in a Purdue uniform before. So we're going to see. I think it was a good hire. I don't think they're going to do in Indiana where they kind of take everyone by storm. I think if you see progress and you see 4 or 5 wins this year after going 1-11 last year with a totally overturned roster, I think that's perfectly acceptable for year one. And so I think that's probably where they're headed. But which sounds like I'm kind of damning them with faint praise on paper. I'm not. I think an improvement from 1-11 to 4-8 or 5-7 is perfectly acceptable for year one. And then you build on that with another transfer class and you start building recruiting inroads, which is done. So I think that they are in good hands going forward, but it's going to take a little bit longer than IU because no one's cursing that. It just the fundamental fact is no one is cursing that. And so you are going to need to be a little bit of a longer build if you're basically anybody else.
Well, that was kind of the question or avenue I was approaching is I think I saw that the over-under wins for them right now is 3 for this year. That's kind of the over-under, which I thought was kind of surprising to a degree. And you're correct. A team that was 1-11 and a year ago, new staff hire, for them to get into a 4-win, 5-win type of season, or, if the wind blows right, 6 would be a monumental jump and increase in that. But I was wondering the same thing. Is Purdue in the Big Ten of things, with the number of transfers they've brought in, are they potentially the new Indiana in terms of flipping it as quickly as Coach Cignetti did, having that monumental season a year ago of going 11-1? Is Purdue capable and Barry Odom capable of doing that? And I think you've kind of answered that, but your kind of feeling is no. That is, you don't think that's going to be capable.
No, and that is the problem here, right? I think that's the problem for Barry Odom, and that's why this Purdue situation specifically is going to be such a tough job, is because every Purdue fan, right, fairly or unfairly, is going to be looking at IU and being like, well, why can't we do that? They just hired a guy and brought him in. But the problem is that Curt Cignetti is one of the 5 best coaches in the country. And IU just happened to get him at the right time. And then he was able to, and then because of the final COVID years, IU was able to bring in a bunch of guys from his last team that had a year of eligibility left and get them and really build a team around them. And they got the right quarterback in Curtis Rourke, right? Purdue did not go out and get a quarterback that's proven this offseason. Ryan Brown, who started some games for them last year, transferred to North Carolina and then came back in the spring window when they weren't really satisfied with any of their other quarterback options. So it is one of those things where I think that Curt Cignetti and what Indiana and Curt Cignetti did last year was a one of one. It is not going to happen at Purdue. It is not going to happen at basically any other school you can think of. It's just not. I'm sorry. And so, and that is not to say that Barry Odom is not a good football coach, because I think he is. I just think that it was such a unique situation. Everything came together for Indiana last year that expecting it to be replicated or even close to replicated is difficult. I think the other part of this is that Purdue went 1-11 last year, but they had some really talented players on that team, right?
Yeah.
Dylan Thieneman, Will Helt, Max Clare, a bunch of other guys. DJ Wingfield went to USC, right? Like
Thieneman went to Oregon. You
Yeah.
know, that I would have loved for Indiana to pick him up because he's a player.
Absolutely. Like they had players. Cole Brevard went to Texas, right? Like they had really high level dudes on that team, and they still went 1-11. And then you lost basically every single high level dude on that team. There is not a guy from that team that really, really contributed. And you said, that's a dude that we want to keep that stayed. And so other than Brown, basically, who left and then came back. It is a total roster turnover. Indiana at least had a couple of guys who stuck around, and you were like, okay, I can see where, like Mike Kadick, right? Purdue doesn't really have a Mike Kadick that was a leader of the previous team that's going to be a leader of this team. I don't really think that exists on this roster. And so, like, there are some holdovers, obviously. Not every single player transferred, but it's not like veteran guy that we've kept around that's really been a fixture of the locker room. So it really was an entire tear down and rebuild, and you're just not going to get a totally cohesive team out of that in one offseason. It's just not possible. So we're going to see. I think Purdue. The problem also for Purdue is they have a difficult schedule, right? They get Michigan, they get Ohio State, they get USC, they have Notre Dame in the non-conference. There really isn't a guarantee. There really isn't a guaranteed win on their conference schedule, and they only have 2 non-conference games that I would consider guaranteed wins. So you're going to be scrapping and clawing every single week. Illinois is really good. They have them on the schedule. So it's going to be, hey, how many can we scratch out here? And if you get to 4 or 5, great. Year 1, that's where you want to be.
Well, they open the year against my alma mater and where I coached for 8 years, Ball State. They play them with new coaching staff in place there. Then they play Southern Illinois. Then they go back-to-back games, USC and Notre Dame. And then follow that with Illinois. So their schedule probably in the middle part of the year maybe gets them a little bit better in the competition arena, but to go back-to-back USC and Notre Dame, that's no friendly schedule when you think about that aspect of things. So, but one more thing here, Omar Mayer, the kid from Israel that's coming into Purdue, playing in the he's in the FIBA under 19 group. We're seeing this with basketball now, with being able to go overseas and with NIL and the rev share, they're being able to bring in some kids from overseas that are darn good basketball players. This Omar Mayer kind of fits that stature for Purdue basketball.
This dude is the truth. That dude is a dude. You watch his game. He is a fully formed product at 17 years old. He's only going to get better. He can shoot 3. He can pass it. I think the biggest thing is that despite being 17, 18 years old, he is developed in his body, right? He's not going to get pushed around in the Big Ten. I would expect him to push for minutes and a rotation spot right away at Purdue. And some people already talked about him being a one and done. I don't think that's probably going to happen. I think that with Braden Smith in there, you're probably grooming him to be the guy in his sophomore year. But it's not just that they got a guy from Europe. A lot of people have gotten guys from Europe. It is that they went out and got a guy who is going to contribute significantly for them immediately, and a guy with a huge skill set. His recruitment is weird to me because it really heated up at the end, and he had offers from some really, really big time programs. I think Duke was pursuing him heavily, and the fact that Purdue was able to kind of keep him and keep him in house was really impressive. So You have to maybe wonder if Travion Williams, who he played with over there in Israel, had a say in that, which good for Travion Williams if that is the case. And so it's one of those things where I think that they got a real steal here, a guy who was under the radar when they got him, and then he kind of blew up afterward. To me, he is the most it's the most excited I've been for a guy coming into Purdue since Caleb Swanigan. And I understand that like no one was this excited for Zach Edey to come into Purdue, right? Despite the fact that he ended up being a fantastic player, he wasn't that guy coming out of high school, as many people have pointed out over the years. Same with Jaden Ivey, same with Carson Edwards. Those guys were good players once they got on campus. But I think the Omar Mayer is a guy who coming into campus is going to be a guy, which is not something Purdue gets on a regular basis. So we're going to see. It's you don't want to go too overboard with the hype on him because he is just coming in as a kid, but it's really hard to watch the tape and not get really excited for his game. Yeah,
and Indiana with the risk kid that they're bringing in from the Serbian national team, Mayer you're getting from Israel. You can just kind of see a little bit of a trend here where you're going to see more of a world recruiting in that regard, because
international recruiting.
And it's strictly because of rev share and NIL money that these kids from overseas are potentially could be lured into the States. And it's not like they haven't done that before, that this isn't the only kid that's come in from an international flavor, but I do think you're going to see more and more of it because of the ability to pay them and get them here, and they can, have a comfortable collegiate life. And if their vision of playing in the NBA, they're going to get to go against some of the best talent in the world anyway, right here in the States. So I do think it's going to be one of those scenarios that we're going to see more and more of it with some of these things. But last thing here, Matt Painter was ripping Michigan and I think Dusty May for trying to get Braden Smith to come to Michigan. Anything in your arena? Have you heard anything about that in terms of Michigan trying to really lure him away?
I had not heard anything specific on that. I just know that he had suitors this offseason.
Oh yeah,
right? He was. Some of the numbers that have been thrown around are wild and crazy, and you never know what to believe in that space because so much of it is rumor and innuendo. But it's one of those things where that's just kind of college sports now. If you are a high level player and you have proven yourself at the highest level, you are going to get offers in the several millions from the biggest schools, and you are going to have to kind of figure out. That's why all these guys have agents. It's not because they're greedy and they want every penny. It's they need someone to navigate this, right? They need someone to basically field these million phone calls you're going to get and say, hey, does this guy want this and this money from this and this school? How real is this, right? And again, we talked about Purdue and over the years about how they need to invest more in that athletic department, and they've done that, right? Like that's the thing. Over the years they built the football building. They gave Barry Odom a significant contract to get him here from UNLV, and then on top of that, they kept this basketball roster together, which was not cheap. I can tell you that right now. It is a very, very expensive roster because they've had so many guys that have proven themselves, right? Like I'm sure, like there's some probably hometown discount there to some extent. You're going to take a little bit less to stay home because you want to be at Purdue. These guys all want to be at Purdue, but these are proven players. Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith are maybe 2 of the 10 best players in the country. They needed to pay to keep them home. And so that is the athletic department and the Purdue donor base stepping up. And obviously they needed to because those guys were getting huge, huge offers from elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, I really thank you for joining us here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio and stepping in and give us all your wisdom as you always do each and every week here. And look forward to talking with you down the line as we gear up for the start of college football here in a couple weeks.
Absolutely, Griff. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Dylan Sinn from the Journal Gazette. joining us here today on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Just a couple reminders. Make sure you visit Hard Truth for all your bourbon needs, as they have some great selections there. And also, if you're in the market for a car, Andy Moore Honda is a place that you can stop off and get. And I'm sure Jim would appreciate it if you do. Mention Indiana Sports Beat Radio, because it goes a long way with everything. We're going to step aside, take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star. Little high school football talk as we get ready for high school football to kick off here shortly. We'll be with him right after we get back here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for our friend Jim Coyle today, and hope you're enjoying the show, as we just got done with Dylan Sinn from the Journal Gazette, talking a little bit of basketball and football at Indiana, and of course a little bit of Purdue. You know, high school football is right around the corner as well, and going to bring in our next guest, Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star. Let's see if I can get you. Well, what's going on here? There he is. Kyle, how are you today? I appreciate you joining us, and I am not Jim Coyle.
No, you look better than Jim.
Well, don't tell him that. He won't like that. But you know, we all know that high school football is fastly approaching, just like NFL training camps fastly approaching, as well as college football training camp is approaching. High school football is right there with them up here in Northeast Indiana. The high school media day is July the 15th up here, as they will couple the media day with the Indiana Football Hall of Fame inductions. Thomas Hammock, one of them, who played at Bishop Luers as the head coach at Northern Illinois, will be inducted into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. But July 15th is their media day. And in my spare time, I provide color analysts up here on 1380 The Fans coverage of high school football, and done that for the last few years. And was reading an article you had yesterday, I believe, about some of the top prospects that in the state of Indiana, and some of the key commitments there. But when things down there in central Indiana, what are some things that in terms of top teams would you say are going to be teams to keep an eye on for this 25 high school football season?
Yeah, I'm just starting to dive into that myself. We've got we do a couple different media nights. I think we're going to do them here later I know we're going to do them here later in July, but yeah, that'll be, I think you have to start in 6A with Brownsburg, which won I always kind of start with the state champion first and give them the benefit of the doubt to repeat. I did that last year with Ben Davis. It didn't really pan out that way. But, I think with Brownsburg, though, and they did kind of have I wouldn't say a miracle run, but they won a lot of close games during the tournament. They were down 35-7 in the first round of the sectional to that Ben Davis team and came back and won. But most of their offense returns, and that'll be a big that'll be a big benefit to them, including Oscar Fry, their quarterback. They got two good running backs that they used primarily last year. That'll be back. Their receiving core's back. Their defense is almost totally retooled, but they do have a lot of talent on that side. And really, they're kind of you look at the next 2 years, they're going to have it set up pretty well. It's really hard to repeat in 6A, let alone, try to three-peat, which Center Grove did a few years ago. But that just normally doesn't happen that way. So, and I don't know that they're like a slam dunk pick to win 6A either, but they will be near the top, I will say. And I think Center Grove, is another team that, when you look at what they did last year, they almost beat Brownsburg in that semi-state game. They were throwing into the end zone with the chance to win it, and the guy goes into the flat, the tight end goes into the flat, and he's open, but the Brownsburg linebacker gets to the quarterback and just kind of makes him flutter it and get rid of it early, or they win state, so you don't know, so that's how close it is a lot of times in 6A. But I think Center Grove, I think Warren Central, new coach JT Whitaker came over from Brownsburg. He was offensive coordinator there. Warren has got they always have a lot of talent, but I think they've got the right. I think they've got some pieces that probably fit together on offense a little bit better than they did last year. Their defense was outstanding last year. Their offense really kind of sputtered, but I think they'll be better on that side of the ball. And then, you look at the north side of the bracket. Westfield's kind of been the team to beat these last couple of years. I know they felt last year like they had the team that could win it, and they almost did. Again, that 6A championship against Brownsburg, a really close game, really, really great game. But they do lose quite a bit, so and Crown Point's a team I think, we don't talk about around here as much nearly because, they're not in the central Indiana area, but, they have been really strong these last couple of years. And last year they lost to Westfield pretty handily in the semi-state, but year before made it to the state finals. A lot of talent returning for that Crown Point team. They're sort of a team that, I think has earned some of the respect that these other 6A teams around here get. So that'll be an interesting team to watch. And they have not really been challenged during the regular season these last couple of years. So they do add Pike to the schedule. They play at Pike in the second week of the year. Pike's a much better team than they've been in the past. So I think that's good for them to play some, Central Indiana 6A teams to kind of get ready for the tournament. But yeah, and one more, kind of interesting storyline too is Cathedral goes down to 5A.
Yeah.
Decatur Central moves up. So you got they sort of flip-flop spots. Decatur has been, very strong in 5A, won state in 5A last year. So now they're in 6A, and they have a lot of talent returning. Casimir Hicks, who's going to IU, their top receiver. He is, really fast, really good player. So now they're playing 6A. That'll be a storyline to look at going into the year. Can they compete at that level? They open up with Avon and New Pal, so they'll find out, very quickly. So, it'll be fun. I love 6A, all of high school football, but especially 6A is always so fun to kind of, parse through the talent and see what things look like that first night and then kind of go from there. But yeah, there's a lot of, I just probably say this a lot of times, but I think there's a lot of teams that can win 6A. I would give Brownsburg a little bit of an edge, just because they are coming off the title last year, but it's not by much, if anything.
Yeah. And, I think there's been more and more parity, I guess you could say, in high school football over the last several years. And a lot of that has to do with the time that these coaches get to be with kids now in terms of actually being able to coach them in times of years that in past were not able to, and they've gotten the chance now where it's almost becoming year round in some respects, but are seeing a lot of really good football in Indiana overall. And you can just tell why it's been pretty good is some of the commitments that have already happened this year. And, we talked about at the start of high school football, and I think that is August 4th is when it kicks off. And I think the first full week of games is August 22nd. But let's talk a little bit about some of the commitments that you talked about in the state of Indiana, more specifically there in central Indiana areas of high school football teams and players and such. But, Center Grove seems to be pumping them out quite a bit as well. With that, you got Seifries from the O-line center from Center Grove, and then Cherry, who's going to Purdue, which I thought was an interesting thing because I thought, well, if IU's Cherry gets back into healthy and finds his way on the field, he may have to look out for his brother coming off the edge because his brother Kobe is a beast of a player and a pretty darn good baseball player. But talk about that aspect of it, some of the rise of talent in Indiana from a recruiting standpoint and some of the places that some of these kids are going.
Yeah, I actually asked Kobe about that. I said, hopefully, you're going to come around the corner and see Tyler, what happens there, brother versus brother. He says, well, hopefully that, we both have that opportunity at some point for that to happen. But, he said he would have no hesitation to sack his brother. So I didn't expect any other answer to that. But yeah, I think, and he's a guy too, his overall rating and ranking and whatnot by the national, recruiting sites has kind of gone down. But that was in part because he didn't play last year. He had an injury, missed the season. He came back and did play baseball this past spring, but that was his last, spring playing. He'll enroll early for football after his, after this fall semester this fall at Center Grove. So, but I think he's a guy that, I think he could have a huge impact this year and really at Purdue too. He's a big dude who, very athletic. He was ranked a lot higher than this before the injury that cost him, basically his entire junior season. But I think he's a guy that could end up a lot higher, be an impactful player in this class. But yeah, you look at most of the 2026 guys have committed now. Just the other night, the two kids from Heritage Hills, Tyler Ruxer and Jet Goldsberry. And Goldsberry's a guy who I think will be in the mix for Mr. Football. He might be you could say he might be the favorite going in with all he's accomplished already for Heritage Hills. He's not the top recruit necessarily. He won't play quarterback in college, but going to Ole Miss, Ruxer, who's even a higher level commit, going to Oklahoma, or higher ranked commit, I should say. Going to Oklahoma to play, tight end receiver, sort of a guy who can maybe do both for you, but good size player for sure. But yeah, some of the other ones, JJ Finch, Jeremy Finch Jr., going to Alabama from Warren Central, super talent, defensive end / linebacker. He's certainly one of the top guys in the class, has been for a long time. I mentioned earlier, Casimir Hicks, who, if you look on some lists, he's one of the ones that he's definitely a smaller guy, but he is electric in the open field. I had a chance to cover him quite a few times last year, and every game was just like, he made game-changing plays constantly. It'll be fun to see him play because he has 6A speed for sure. So it'll be fun to see him play against 6A competition this year. They do that anyway at Decatur. They have a good schedule, but he's definitely will be a lot of fun to watch, I think, this year too. Terry Walker he transferred from Lawrence Central. He played the last 3 years, mostly his sophomore and junior year, but did get a little time as a freshman even at LC. And now he's at HSE. So he actually lives in Fishers. He transferred to HSE this coming year. He's committed to Duke, but he's one of those one of those guys who's a dual threat quarterback, run and pass, playing with probably a little bit better team this coming year. Although LC, I think, has got a chance to be pretty good still. But HSE has consistently been better these last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see what he does this year as a senior with that HSE team. And then some of the other, James Williams Jr. from LC going to Purdue, really good kid, funny kid. He'll be I'm looking forward to our media day with him. I think he'll give us some laughs, I think, in our interviews, but he's going to Purdue as well. So if you look down the list, I think Purdue is doing pretty well. IU also too, doing well in this class. They've kind of gone some different areas with the transfer portal and, maybe making that a little bit more of a priority, but also getting some in-state kids. And, it'll be curious. I'll be curious to see what they do kind of moving forward. You mentioned Seifries from Center Grove, the big offensive lineman. He's a Mack truck. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And then also, they got Blake Smythe, who I think, he's a really talented defensive lineman. Quick for his size, super quick on the defensive line. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does as well. And I mentioned Crown Point earlier, Trevor Gibbs, who's a linebacker, a big linebacker, a really good sized linebacker, going to IU as well. So they've done well in this class to get those guys. I'm sure they would have liked to get a couple other ones, but it's always tough when you get into the mix with the big dogs of the world, the kind of the blue bloods of college football, like Alabama and Oklahoma and people like that. And, it's even though the year IU had last year, it's tough to win those battles. In the years I've done it, it's like anytime Ohio State gets interested, it's pretty much a done deal. It's kind of like when Michigan State in basketball, when Izzo comes into Indiana, he means business. He usually gets who he wants to get. It's kind of the same with, Ohio State football. When they come in, it's hard to beat those guys, even if you've been recruiting people for a while. But in this class, I think they've done pretty well. They've gotten most of the players I think they wanted to get. The 2027 class, I think, will be, that will be one to watch too, because Monsoon Sales, who is a big time receiver, I know he likes IU, and I think IU's got some inroads there with Omar Cooper, who went to be on the roster. They've got Davion Chandler coming in. Another guy who's really fun to interview for those who do that on our side of the job. But having those two guys, I think, will help with Sales, who's a 4-star or 5-star, depending on who you look at. He's a top 20 guy in the nation. So IU's in the mix for him. Caleb Elkins from Warren is a big safety. Who's I think also a top, not top 20, but 3 or 4-star, I think 4-star by most accounts. And Jack Sorgi did commit out of that 2027 class to Louisville, so he got in early. Quarterbacks are a little bit different. You kind of have to get your spot, and there's not as many offers that go out. So I think that was kind of the case there. Felt really good about Louisville and Brom being there, and then. Of course, Jack's dad Jim played for the Colts, he's a name people know as well. So he got in a little bit early, but will be some other good players in that class. That class will be fun to watch, in large part because of Sales and also Elkins, but some other good players in that group as well.
Yeah, no question. The 2027 class is, and Indiana's already made their inroads with some kids there, and. Like you said, I think they made their inroads in state, and it's important to try to keep the best talent at home. I mean, that is the toughest part, that Indiana and even Purdue, for the most part, has not been able to keep that top tier 5-star type of kid from Indiana at home. And you kind of alluded to Finch going to Alabama, and I believe you said, is it Goldsberry went to Ole Miss, and the tight end from Guerin, Catholic, is going to Oklahoma. But the state of Indiana is well represented with high school talent in football, and not something that you would say too much over the years, but there's a lot more big time programs coming in Indiana. Miami of Florida's come into Indiana, picked up a couple of kids. Brock Schott up here around from Leo High School is there now. And you talked about some of the other kids that are going to some of the mid majors. You got Bauer from Carmel going to Charlotte, Maverick from the old lineman at Westfield, who I think is a really good player, He's going to OU. Robinson, the wide receiver from Brownsburg, who, 12 touchdowns a year ago, committed to Central Michigan. So a lot of top tier talent in Indiana, and in terms of high school football is concerned. And, the other thing you had listed, I tell you what, I'll take a break and we'll come back and pick up this and a couple other things I want to get to, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that works. That's fine.
All right, buddy. Well, we're going to be back more talking some Indiana high school football, and we'll sneak in some high school basketball as well right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, talking Indiana high school football, and we'll get into some of the basketball aspects of it here in a short bit. Kyle, one thing that I wanted to get your opinion on, because this is something that is over the landscape of high school athletics going forward with now NIL and, money and things like that. In Indiana, a high school player, because of amateur status, cannot accept any type of money. And in NIL would be an example of that. However, several states have changed that particular bylaw or law or however you want to put it, to allow kids now to start earning money via NIL. And we talked about some of the more prominent players in Indiana. What is your take with Indiana's NIL status as it pertains to high school, IHSA regulations? Are we at a point where schools need to Indiana needs to rethink their NIL in amateur status bylaws?
The conversations I've had with, IHSA and high school administrators and those sorts of people, there's definitely not a large appetite for it, I would say. And I think largely probably hope that it doesn't happen. I do wonder if it was kind of like the transfer situation where, the IHSA didn't really want it, but the legislature kind of pushed for it. I think that may be where you could see some changes maybe happen on that front. I don't know. I don't know the right answer, to that. I mean, I know some different states have done different things. I think there's, some, definitely some questions of like pay for play situations that would be, problematic. What constitutes NIL, or what's allowed, what's not. I think it kind of opens Pandora's box a little bit. I think that's what they're a little bit leery of, is allowing that to happen. And then how do you regulate it, or how do you kind of keep your arms around it and make sure people are going by the rules and whatever. There's already I had a coach tell me there's already with this transfer rule, and this part of our Coaches Confidential series that we do, but I was reading through some of the some of the responses, and one of them was telling told him, obviously this is off the record, but will be part of our Coach Confidential series is, there's a school out there giving away money to kids now and promising, hey, we'll get you an Xbox or stuff like that. So there's obviously stuff that goes on. I think that would be kind of the and hopefully and I would say hopefully those coaches are turning those schools in for stuff like that, because that's obviously not the intent of the transfer rule, but I think that's probably I think NIL could be allowed, under the amateurism, guidelines or whatever. But I think it would just be, you have to be very clear on what, what they're benefiting, from, and how that will be, if there's issues, what will the penalties be and things like that. So, I don't know if there's a whole lot of opportunities out there for high school kids to gain money, but I don't know. I mean, that's something, that it would have to happen, I guess, for us to see, or look into whatever other states are doing and how that's kind of working out. That may be a good idea for a future story. But, I know Ohio, there's a proposal a couple years ago, maybe, and it failed. And it's, as far as I know, Ohio still does not allow it. I know some other states a little bit farther away from us do allow it, but yeah, I mean, that may be something to kind of look into this fall a little bit more of what other states are doing and how it's working there.
Well, kind of diving into that subject matter myself, I think right now, from what I'm gathering outside of Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Texas, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and I believe Wyoming, and there's a few more in there, do not allow NIL aspects as it pertains to not encroaching on the amateurism aspect of their bylaws, but most states now permit it. That's the thing. You're going to see most states will now, will allow it, but you talked about you got to have some restrictions and all that type of things. And, the back of the restaurant deals and things like that written on on a napkin, or creating a competitive imbalance based upon where you're at in that regard. But I thought, that is one thing that I do think that Indiana as a whole and the IHSAA are going to have to address, because the landscape has now changed at the collegiate level. And the fact that some of these kids, especially these top tier kids that are going to these P4 schools, they're already in the mind of getting agents and people that understand the groundwork that's in front of them when it comes to the rev share aspect of things. And then of course the NIL aspect of things. So I just thought it was a interesting thing that I wanted to throw at you, get your kind of your feedback on it, because I do think that's going to be one topic that's going to have to be addressed sooner rather than later by the IHSAA when it comes to this, especially for these top tier kids that are getting, Alabamas of the world, Indianas of the world, Purdue and things like that. So just want to get your take on that. Appreciate your deal. And if I gave you a topic for a potential story down the road, hey, it's worked both ways today.
Yeah, and I've got more than enough, but yeah, that is one, it's definitely, on my radar. And I know a lot of states have, I would guess if it came up for a vote, the IHSA board of directors, it would probably not pass, but but like I said, it may go, I think Alabama or, Arkansas, one of those states I know they voted it down, but then it came up in the legislature, and it's kind of going through that process now too. So, I think if kids are making money, outside of, what their school, what their high schools are doing, maybe that would be allowable. But I don't know, that I could see that could be problematic too, if you have coaches who are, working with you on the side and getting you those deals. And then also they're on the staff at whatever high school you go to. So, and that would probably fall under, some sort of undue influence or pass link violation or whatever. So it does, I could see where it could open up a mess, but I also get where, as an athlete, you only have so long where you can kind of gain, your your best financial
Yeah.
situation also. So I completely get that from an athlete's perspective as well.
Yeah, because not every kid that goes to a P4 school or mid-major type of school is going to go into the NFL, and their best time to potentially earn money now is these years that are before them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, some of these kids that come from, rough backgrounds and such, it's an opportunity for them to help out their family. And I think that's the one big thing that we're seeing now with all this is, the other impact of how it may help families that, have had hard times and things like that, or a single mom and a young man is able to the football or basketball help support, their family in that regard. So let's jump over to basketball here a little bit, not to slide anything. Another thing that you had talked about is, some of the top prospects in the state this year in basketball. And again, just as along with football, you got to say that even in basketball as well, these recruits are now becoming a big part of the fabric of Indiana, both in football and in basketball, in terms of a, media aspect, notoriety and stuff. But some of the top 25 basketball prospects you had and in state, I want to talk a little bit about some of those kids. I know you had Luke Ertl, the kid from Mount Vernon, Fortville, probably number one overall in the class. Any, and some updates maybe on the recruiting front on some of these kids.
Yeah, the 26 class, I think pretty clearly now, Luke Ertl is kind of staked his claim to that top spot. And I don't know if you could argue, I haven't heard anybody argue against that based on what he did this past year. He's just kind of a kid who's built a little different. He's covered Braden Smith throughout his high school career, and he kind of has that same sort of chip on his shoulder mentality that Braden, maybe not to the extent Braden's kind of even beyond the pale a little bit on that, but Luke definitely has that sort of mentality. And then, just as, he was a little bit injured last year because he's coming off that foot injury in football, and then he only played maybe 6 games as a sophomore. But then last year, I thought the second half of his year, was sensational. He played like a Mr. Basketball. He beat Braylon Mullins in the sectional championship. They both played awesome in that game. But yeah, I think he's pretty clearly one. After that, I think you make an argument for a lot of different players. I like Noah Smith from Plainfield at number 2. He has an official visit to DePaul in about 3 weeks. I'm curious if any other schools. I thought he played great at the Charlie Hughes. He's about 6'8", can shoot it. He's got a lot of sort of mid-major schools after him, and then DePaul. And, Indiana State, is in the mix. Oklahoma State just offered. Justin Curry's another one from Noblesville, about a 6'4" shooter. He's going to narrow things down after July. He's another one I think could potentially, get a high major maybe. But right now he's got DePaul, also Indiana State, Nevada. Northwestern is in that mix too. Northwestern's done a nice job recruiting him, so he does have a high major there. But Kai McGrew's another one. He's 6'9". It just transferred from LN to Fishers. I really like his game.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of ability. He can shoot too. He's not just an interior guy. He can shoot some, but he really came on at the end of the year at LN, and like I said, now at Fishers. But Dikembe Shaw's mentioned Crown Point in football earlier. Their basketball team is going to be really good this year. He's got more of mid majors. He's probably he's a ready-made player. He can shoot it from the 3-point line. He's strong, physical guy. He's got Ball State, Coastal Carolina, Miami of Ohio, Murray State, those type of schools, but hasn't got that high major. And then I have Jayshon Ladd, just to mention another guy at Ben Davis. He's 6'4", super athletic. He's going to visit Akron, an official visit in August. But another guy I think too. And some of these guys, and Terrence Hayes from Gary 21st, another one. They might start out as mid-major players and then work their way up. That's kind of how the system works anymore. So I think that's something that you'll see with a lot of these players too. I like this class maybe more than others do. I think there's, guys like Baron Walker from Noblesville is to me like way underrated. Carry-on Berry from Avon, who's got a Butler offer, which I think that would be a great fit for him. Brennan Miller, who's got all kinds of ability. It's a very strong top 10, and even into the 10 to 15, really good players too. So, but yeah, I like this class. I think it's a really good class. I think we'll be a lot of mid-major players who maybe have a chance to play their way up. That's sort of, talking to mid-major coaches, they kind of understand that's the way it goes anymore, is how that, how that works is, it's kind of how they recruit guys anymore. Hey, you come here, be a great player for us, and you may have a chance to go to, wherever, high major, if it works out. So it's interesting how that works now, but that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, the talent level in Indiana, both in high school basketball and football, has grown immensely over the last few years. And a lot of kids are getting opportunities, especially at P4 schools, and names to keep an eye on as we move through the 2026 recruiting season. But Kyle, I appreciate you being with us here today, and look forward to talking maybe down the road sometime.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Shannon.
Yes, sir. Kyle Neddenriep from Indianapolis Star with us here this morning on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Alec Lasley from the Hoosier.com will join us to talk a little bit of football and basketball and what things are happening there at the Hoosier.com right after this here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Welcome back to the Indiana Sports Beat Radio with the coach Shannon Griffith, subbing in for Jim Coyle. And before we bring on Alec here from the Hoosier.com, one announcement again here, but the Never Lose Hoop golf outing at the golf club at Eagle Point is around the corner. This annual event provides 2 local families with a financial gift to be used towards a memorable, fun, uplifting family experience of their choice. And of course, they're trying to make this year's event the best ever yet. Register your foursome to play in the event, $500 for the Never Lose Hoop golf outing at the golf club at Eagle Point. And it's about 45 days away. So if you want to get your foursomes together and do that, I'm sure they would appreciate you being a part of this year's Never Lose Hoop golf outing. Let's bring on Alec up to the stage. Hello there, young man. How are you today?
Doing good, Shannon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Alec Lasley from the Hoosier.com, who does a lot of different things, juggling things, especially dealing with someone like myself who has to put things up. And has helped quite a bit with all the video breakdowns that we've done with all the recruits. And those have come hard and fast pretty steadily here for the month of June, heading into July. But I do think we are, kind of in a little bit of a limbo period here, maybe one or two, but I do think they are setting pretty well with the 2026 class with 22 commitments right now. But we'll wait and see. Indiana basketball, Puerto Rico coming up here in the month of August, and get the chance to see them play against the Puerto Rican All-Star team there, as well as a Serbian national pro team there in Puerto Rico. Indiana basketball recruiting, I guess you could say the same thing there. They've done quite well from themselves thus far, and kind of get your take there on some of the recruitments. I know you had something there up on the Hoosier.com. And before I forget, get over to the Hoosier.com, pick up that subscription, $1 first month, 50% off the rest of the first year. And you get all the things there on the Hoosier.com, both football and basketball and more, as well as On Three's coverage of not only in Indiana, but as well as other teams nationally. But talk about the basketball recruits in 2026 to kind of track over the summer here, Alec.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Indiana's done a phenomenal job, up to this point, not only landing Prince Alexander Moody, getting in kind of a terrific spot with him quite early on, but now really being able to focus on a couple key recruitments coming into the fall. There's a decent amount that Indiana is involved with that want to make earlier decisions. So we have something up on the site right now, taking a look at kind of the 5 that I would track that are trending towards not only pretty heavy Indiana involvement, but also ones that can have a decision here in I would say the next 2 to 3 months here, which in recruiting cycles can obviously change at any point, as you know. But the key one there is Latrell Allman, right? A top 30 power forward, already taken his official visit to Indiana. Has yet to set any other visits up right now. Virginia's trying to get one, but also Oklahoma State, LSU, some other ones there. Alabama and Kansas, the two to kind of track from a standpoint of if they decide to jump in with 2 feet, they will be factors, as you can imagine, from a basketball standpoint here. If they don't, Indiana seems like a destination that is going to be difficult to overcome. They've done a phenomenal job in this recruitment. Not only has Rod Clark, but Kenny Johnson done a phenomenal job building relationships with Latrell Allman, obviously from Virginia. So the initial kind of involvement there was from Kenny Johnson and being able to have the DMV ties, and then Rod Clark, who actually was on the Tennessee staff when Latrell Allman took a visit there last year. So you have it coming from both angles. Indiana's done a phenomenal job. The excitement level and interest level from both obviously Indiana and then Latrell Allman's side was very high before the visit last month. Since that visit, it's only been kind of positive news that's really kind of circulated around him in that recruitment for the time being. Not a lot of new schools have really jumped in, but he's been a terrific standout at numerous different events over the last couple of weeks and throughout the summer. So that's obviously kind of priority number one, as a guy who can come in and pretty much be a high impact player right away. When you're looking at Indiana's class from the 2026 perspective, you're probably looking at 4, maybe 5, but you're probably looking at 4 players who come in, 2 maybe that are further down the line that may kind of squeeze into the rotation, but 2 that should likely be high impact players immediately. And Latrell Allman fits that mold and fits that type of skill set, coming in and being able to play that hybrid forward position. Next guy who's really kind of taken a step up here in Indiana's involvement is Aiden Durkak, shooting guard from New Jersey, guy who is a little bit lower in the rankings, still a top 100 player, but Creighton, Maryland, Providence, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Dayton, some of the schools that are involved there. This is one where Indiana offered just last weekend, following the last June evaluation period. A guy who Rod Clark has watched numerous games of. Indiana is very, very interested in getting him on campus. There's mutual interest there of having that visit happen. The previous Indiana staff was poking around with his brother when he was going through the transfer portal a couple summers ago and last summer. So there's familiarity with the family and with the program. Obviously, a much different staff there than it was previously. But from an Indiana perspective, the interest level is there from that side of things with Aiden Durkak. So that is one I would keep a very close eye on from an Indiana perspective. Likely have a visit set up here, probably following this live evaluation period that's beginning this weekend here in July. And this is one where I would expect a quick recruitment here over the next couple of weeks into the next month. Likely going to make multiple visits after Peach Jam wraps up next week, and then likely make a decision pretty soon after that. And Indiana's done a phenomenal job just in kind of the short time frame of getting in to this recruitment. And when you're looking at, again, two kind of high impact players, two players who probably need a little bit more time to kind of crack into the rotation, he probably fits into that, maybe a little bit more time to crack into the rotation right away, but still a phenomenal wing player who can play on both ends of the floor there. Couple other names to really keep, I would say a close eye on. Tay Kinney from Overtime Elite, point guard from the Kentucky area, a guy who just scheduled his official visit for later in August. But this is a guy who, phenomenal point guard, top 15 in the class, a guy who at the moment, I would put Indiana kind of on that second tier. You're looking at Louisville and Kentucky probably as the two right now that are ahead in this recruitment. But the ability to get him on campus at the end of August is going to be critical in this recruitment to see maybe what tides can turn towards the Indiana side. So again, if you're looking at one who potentially, probably has the most riding on a visit, I would say that this is Tay Kinney from that standpoint. But again, Indiana has some ground to make up there. Ethan Taylor, another name to keep an eye on. Number one center in the class, has great connections from Rod Clark, both at his previous high school, Sunrise Christian, now playing at Lincoln Academy, but Rod Clark with great connections at Sunrise Christian, and then his current AAU program, Mocan Elite, as well. So those are a couple to really, really keep a close eye on. Irfan Diane from Iowa right now, another center, number two center in the class, likely will be visiting Indiana. Most of his visits are going to take place the beginning of September. He's had a lot of Zooms and a lot of calls with the Indiana staff up to this point. But he's probably that fifth guy, in maybe no particular order outside of Latrell Almond and then Aiden Durkak. Out of those guys, those are probably the top two. And then you look at those other three that are probably, right there behind from a top tier perspective when you're trying to break apart Indiana's 2026 hot board at this point.
Yeah, and I guess I would ask, out of that group there, which one do you think is pretty much Indiana is kind of in the driver's seat in getting?
Yeah, I would say Latrell Almond at the moment. Yeah, that's one where, I would say they've done a lot of heavy lifting before the visit. They did a lot of heavy lifting on the visit, and then even since then. So that's one that I would say is probably not theirs to lose per se, but they're definitely in the front there. And then I would put them right in the thick of things with Aiden Durkak as well. From that perspective, those are the two that I would really, really focus on from an Indiana perspective, with a very high likelihood of being in there until the very end.
Yeah. And, I think the other question that always is on the mind of basketball fans as well is, the center position and kind of how that all adds into this equation and recruiting. And, kind of where do you see them getting that big man, at that center position, or is that one that may or may not be filled with this class?
With 2026, you're saying?
Yeah.
So they're going to get some sort of notable center. They're involved with too many right now to not land one. It's if it's Ethan Taylor or not, time will tell. Kansas is the front runner there at this point, but still an expected visit to happen this fall there from a Ethan Taylor perspective. Outside of that, right? I mean, it's going to be determined based off of how aggressively they go after some of these guys. But the good thing is, no matter what, the entire staff is very much involved with all these prospects. So it's not like they're going to have to make up ground from the relationship perspective. That relationship is already set in stone for most of these prospects. Now it's just about not only showing them how their play style is, but then also where they can fit in with the current roster. The good thing is, depending on which way you look at it, right, there's going to be 6-7 potential open spots after this year with all the guys who are going to have to graduate. Plus, there's probably going to be an expectation of at least 1 or 2 guys enter the portal, right? That's just the way that the game is right now. So you're looking at a lot of open spots. You're looking at a lot of open playing time. But that's why you look at this 2026 class, and it's probably going to be a rather bigger one from the sense of, this day and age. A lot of college programs aren't going super heavily in the high school route, each class. Right. But I think you're looking at 4 to really kind of set that foundation again. And then you bring in, 3-4 transfers and you retain those other 3-4 players. And right there, you have 12, 13 guys that have a healthy mix of returning guys who have set the culture, incoming recruits who want to play for that culture, and then transfers who have that experience and have that play now and kind of win now fit within the rest of that team and that rotation.
Yeah, no question. I think that some of the similarities between Coach Vries and Coach Signetti in terms of recruiting, there's some similarities there in terms of, philosophical approaches to it, and what has changed with the portal and stuff. So, I think there's some definitely similarities between the two. I guess the big question that's coming, they just added this young man from Siberia, I think. Risk, is that his name?
Yeah, from Serbia, Alexa Ristic.
Ristic, yeah. And then, of course, he's going to be on campus, I think they said, here in the next later this month maybe as well. But Sicily's on campus now. How is he fitting in to the program right now? Young pup coming in and things like that. And, give a little background on Ristic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Trent Sicily's done a phenomenal job. Obviously, a lot of players or a lot of people know him from his Heritage Hills days, being a local product before transferring the last year of high school, which did wonders for him in his development. The growth that he made, not only from a skill set standpoint, but from a physical standpoint and kind of physically maturing his body down at Montverde Academy. Was a tremendous step for him to be able to come in and produce the way that he has in the first month of summer workouts. The staff is very high on him. The way that he's come in from day one and competed as the lone freshman on campus right now is difficult to do, but also when you put him up against a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-olds, guys who have now been in their 4th, 5th, or 6th years of college, right? That's difficult to come in and make an impact right away. And he's done that from the way that he's competed every single drill, every single play. And he's also been doing that from a skill set perspective as well, where, not sure how impactful he'll be this year, but the confidence that this staff has in him after, again, looking at it from a 3-4 week standpoint of him on campus has been astronomical. I think way more than what they expected from day one. Which is obviously super impactful for them. Alexa Ristic, a guy who really came out of the blue when he committed to Indiana last month. The plan is for him to play in the U20 Euro Championships, which is beginning next week, and then finish that up and then arrive on campus late July. So he'll be with the team for about a week and a half before he takes the trip over to Puerto Rico with the rest of the roster. So he will play in Puerto Rico. But guy who can play both on and off the ball, exactly what they needed, just a little bit more guard depth from a ball handling standpoint and kind of playmaking standpoint. A guy which I think the first thing you look at is his shooting ability.
Right.
Career 39% 3-point shooter on a pretty high volume of looks there. But the more underrated part is his playmaking and passing ability. Had a very high assist rate last year and this season. And a guy who still can make plays for teammates in ball screen action. And that's one thing that between talking to him and his agent over the last month is one thing that he's excited to showcase specifically, with the national team here coming up is his ability to play both on and off the ball and be more of a playmaker and distributor, which he'll do here in the European Championship. So it'll be interesting to see how that translates to the next level. But Indiana's going to run a lot of ball screen action, a lot of dribble weaves, dribble handoffs, and having a lot of those guards get downhill. And that's where he's going to be able to help. We'll see how much that truly gets onto the floor from a critical minute standpoint. But he's a guy who's going to come in and probably see some minutes throughout the season with his ability to, again, have that versatility from a kind of standstill shooter perspective, but also a guy who can create off of the dribble, which you don't typically have both from a guard standpoint. You typically are much stronger in one area. He has the ability to do both. It's just going to be how that translates from Europe to the college level, especially in the Big Ten, which is I think a good match because typically in the European leagues there's much more physical style of basketball. So to come to the Big Ten, I think he's going to be used to the physicality. It's just with him getting used to the college game and obviously not arriving for a month and a half after these guys have now started to create some of that chemistry together on the floor.
Yeah, no question. And again, you said it there. He'll be well received in the Big Ten, especially coming in from a physical league that he's in as overseas that you specifically stated there. A couple of, last thing here before we have to shut her down for the day. The Puerto Rico trip that's coming up. First time to really get a feeling of what this, basketball team has in terms of seeing them play physically with your eyes. Black and white of things doesn't win many games, but you get a chance now to really kind of see what they have and how their top 5-8 guys look and playing against another team. What are some of the things that you think are important to come away with this Puerto Rico trip for Indiana?
Yeah, I think it's just more time on the floor. Regardless of what, obviously you want to win these games, and that's kind of the first thing, right? You want to make this trip a good one and come away with 3 wins there. But I think it's just about now that this team is going to be, battling against each other for 2 months and getting the chance to be on the same side of things and go against a different team that doesn't know your play calls, doesn't know your skill set, doesn't know your tendencies, right? That's going to be a good thing for Indiana to be able to test, what they have with a brand new set of 5 guys on the opposite side of the floor of them. So I think it's just about making sure that you're able to carry over what has been of the, first month and a half of the summer into that trip and making sure that you're able to build on that. You don't want to take any steps back. Obviously being healthy, returning is probably the biggest thing. But outside of that, I think, a lot of fans want to see what this team looks like now on the floor together, the cohesiveness and the chemistry that they have. And I think a lot of these fans want to see what this front court looks like. There's probably going to be some physical play down there. How does Josh Harris, how does Sam Alexis, you're going to see Trent Sicily, Reed Bailey, right? How does this group of 4 really translate to playing against other teams? How versatile are they on the defensive end with protecting the rim, which we know is probably the lone thing that this team doesn't have from a kind of X's and O's perspective is a true rim protector. So how does this team look defensively? And I think you're going to see a lot of different rotations, see the versatility of this roster really right away with the different lineups that you can play together, the different positions that a lot of these guys are going to be able to play. So I think it's going to be an exciting trip just to see this team together. But more importantly, I think it's going to be just critical to return better than when you got there. And that's kind of basic to say, but with a team that has now 12 new players, a new staff, a new system to learn, it's critical that they make this trip and come back just a little bit better than when they left.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it gives them a chance to see what they got under the hood before they have to really get down at it, come the later this fall. But Alec, appreciate you coming on today, buddy. And we'll talk to you a little bit later.
I appreciate it, Shannon. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. We're going to step out real quick here. When we come back, we're going to wrap it all up for this Hump Day Wednesday, right after this message from the...
Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football. Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.
Well, welcome back. We're going to wrap things up here for Wednesday. Appreciate you for joining me here today as I sit in for Jim Coyle. Going to be back tomorrow as well, and hope that you will join me once again here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for all the guests joining with us today. Alec Lasley, Kyle Neddenriep, and of course, Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal Gazette. Till then, I should say, this is the coach Shannon Griffith of thehoosier.com. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks for listening to Indiana